Alright, I'm having some weird issues with this camera, so I don't know how much I've been able to actually capture through this thing, but kind of just to give you a rundown of what I've had going on. So I picked up a oversized load of trusses in Sparta, North Carolina yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. I got a permit.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I got an oversized permit.
You go put in something.
What's that?
You go put in something in the bar or something for?
Oh, you want dunnage?
Yeah.
Alright. I think we're good to go. Ran down this loaded on a trip permit, and you know, riding with a trip permit, it's got some challenges, man. I mean, when you have a single trip permit, you've got a specific route that you've got to follow, and you can't really deviate very far from your route, and that can be kind of a pain sometimes, especially if you're running into traffic. And I also had to meet this crane at 9 o'clock this morning, so I was also a little bit on a time crunch between my clock, the permits, the drive, because you can't ride with an oversized permit at night. So, you know, they have like specific times. So in Florida, for instance, which is where I was at Sunset, you can only drive your oversized 30 minutes after sunset, and then you have to shut it down, and then you can't take off in the morning until 30 minutes before sunset or later. So, you know, it's pretty restrictive, and so I was on a time crunch. I was stuck on a very specific route. It's just one of those type of things. And so I'm cruising through. I get through all the way through Georgia into Jacksonville, and once I got to Jacksonville, it was getting a little close on time. So a little bit outside of Jacksonville, I try to pull off, and the first thing I do is I pull into a TA, and there's like no open spots except for the paid spots. So they have these like reserved paid for spots, and that was the only place there were any spots, and there was like 3 of them there. So I park in that spot, and I'm letting my truck kind of cool off before I shut it down, go inside and pay for my spot. I haven't ever paid through the app, because it isn't really through the app. It just puts you back on the web page. You can go inside and pay for it too. And while I'm sitting there waiting for my truck to cool off, the guy comes out and he says, all of our spots are already reserved. And, you know, mind you, I was sitting there for a few minutes waiting for my truck to cool off, so I'm losing time to be able to continue down my route. But there's 3 truck stops in this place, so the next thing I do is I go over to TA. Same deal there. The only open spots were reserved spots, and go in and sit there for a few minutes. Guy comes up and talks to me, says, hey, just make sure you pay for the spot. Some of these places aren't quite so controlling about whether or not you've paid for the reserved spot or not, but here it really, really was, because their lots were full too. So I'm thinking this TA is pretty old school, you know, it's probably not gonna have an app or anything like that. So I go in, I talk to the cashier, say, hey, I just need to pay for my spot. And she goes, well, all of our spots are reserved. I'm like, well, I'm parked in a spot right now. And she goes, yeah, but they must have called in ahead. And I'm like, all right, well, that's bullshit. Like, it's bad enough that, you know, you've got apps that let you reserve spots, but now you've got people that can just call ahead and reserve a spot. It just feels wrong. It should be first come, first serve. And, you know, you pay for the spot, but that's besides the point. You know, I mean, they don't have really a good way to track if somebody just doesn't show up and pay, because obviously if they're calling in, they're not likely to be paying for it over the phone. So anyways, I was pretty upset about that. Finally, there was the Loves. I tried my luck at the Loves thinking, okay, maybe. And that had a really big lot, but everything was full in their lot. People were parking where they weren't supposed to be and everything. So I pulled through there, realized I can't park there. Finally, it's way after 9 now. Like, I had to shut down by 9 o'clock. At this point, it's like 9:30. I'm like, okay, I really got to park this thing before I get in trouble. So I go around the corner, pull up on the highway on-ramp, park my stuff. So that really sucked. But I got up first thing this morning and hit the road. You know, I've rolled through, in this trip, I had my permit checked 3 times. So that's, you know, definitely don't try to go oversize without a permit, because they do check. They checked my permit 3 times, cleared me, I was good. And then get to where I'm going, the crane is there waiting. It's in this really tight neighborhood, man. Crane definitely takes some time to unload you, but it wasn't too bad. I was all done by about 11 o'clock. I got there at 9 in the morning, a little bit after 9, because I was, you know, obviously rolling through way stations and everything. Got there at 9 in the morning. I was unloaded by about 11. And then I was looking for my next load to go back up north, because I've got another load coming out of North Carolina from the truss factory on Monday. So I'm trying to find something to cover me to go back up. And on principle, I'm trying not to take any back hauls that don't pay at least a minimum of $2 a mile. Now that more than covers my fuel at $2 a mile, but my problem is that once you get below that, then you're just supporting bad rates. And you know, if everybody just refused to take rates that don't pay what they need to pay, then we would all be better off. So, you know, there wasn't really much that was going the right direction coming out of Tallahassee, which is where I was, but I figured out that I can deadhead quite a far away, like about 300 miles up into Savannah, and take a load from Savannah to Charlotte. And Charlotte is, you know, at least in the right state. I need to get into North Carolina, and I might be able to find just a little hop out of Charlotte tomorrow, and just to get me back to the house, or really close to the house. But if not, it'll be effectively like I took a load from where I was sitting to home for like $1.50 a mile. Because, which is what a lot of people are taking these back hauls for, you know, 80 cents just to cover their fuel. I mean, this will cover all my fuel for sure, and more, because I'm deadheading, so I'm going to get better fuel economy. So rather than getting like 9 miles to the gallon, I'm going to get close to 15. So I'm better off to take this load for, you know, it's essentially $3 a mile, but only covers like a third of my total journey. I'm better off to do that than I would be to take something for like, you know, $1 a mile that, you know, covers the entire ride. Like, it's just because so much more of that time is spent empty, where I'm not spending as much fuel. So this is a complicated business. At the end of the day, like, you got to think about stuff like this. A lot of guys, they'll just be like, oh, I'll just take anything that pays a little bit, and that's what's driving down the freight rates. If everybody did like what I'm doing, I truly believe that the rates would always be good, because there wouldn't be anybody that's saying I'm looking for a backhaul, because my backhaul is a $3 a mile backhaul. Like, that's, yeah, it doesn't cover the whole thing, but at the end of the day, it's the same money with more of it left in my pocket. So I'm much happier to do that.
So before I wrap up this video, I just wanted to take a second to respond to a comment that was on my last video. So basically in the last video, we had a situation where a broker sent me to a load that wasn't ready, and long story short, I already had another load booked on the other end of it, and because this one ended up being a tow new charge, I had to deadhead from Virginia all the way to Pennsylvania to pick up the other load that I had booked. And so the comment basically said that if he were a truck driver, he would be very hesitant to take any new loads until he had already delivered the load that he was already booked for, which is logical, and I totally get that, right? Because you can have something come up in between, the truck could break down, there's a lot of things that can come up. And so you don't want to necessarily leave your customer out in the cold if something happened in between. But the reality of the matter is, so first of all, that is not actually uncommon. There's a lot of people that operate like that. They will go and pick up spot loads every single time. They will call, book a load, drive over, pick it up, deliver it, and then start booking their next load after they're empty. And that's fine to do, and it's totally logical. But the caveat to that is it's very, very limiting, because like today's load that I had permits involved, right? So I had to plan that out several days in advance, and so, you know, by that logic, I wouldn't be able to take anything up until from the time I agreed to take that load until it was time to take that load. And there's no other way to do that, right? I have to get those permits in advance unless I go get an annual permit. But, you know, as you grow, the best paying loads are going to be stuff you're going to have to kind of pre-plan, because they're going to be complicated. And so that's one thing. And then the other thing is it's just your time and your money, right? You want to try and get ahead of it. That way you can kind of come up with a good game plan. And you have to take a little bit of risk, right? Sometimes you're going to end up driving empty, and sometimes you're gonna have to, you know, if your truck breaks, I mean, your truck could break when you're empty, which is actually happening to me right now. I'm having issues with my transmission. I'm empty right now. I didn't book this load until I was empty, and I was driving over to pick this up. I had to deadhead quite a good distance, and along the way I had transmission issues. Hopefully I can limp this thing along and pick up this load and then fix my transmission over the weekend. But there's a chance I'm going to have to call this broker and say, hey, I'm sorry, my truck broke. And so, yeah, you are going to keep yourself from having those issues, right? A little bit by waiting until you're unloaded to book your next load. You're going to avoid issues where you get tow nude in between and have to flip around. But I would say that more often than not, it's more beneficial to book ahead and, you know, kind of chain your stuff together ahead. Because if you start looking early, you're going to have the most options, right? If you wait until the last minute, you don't want to sit for a whole night if you don't absolutely have to, you know, or you don't want to just sit there all night in a place you don't know if you're gonna get a load, you know, or you might not get a load until the next day, until halfway through the day, the end of the day. And there's a lot of things at play here. It's not as simple as I just jump in the truck and drive somewhere. I have hours of duty clock that has to be maintained. It's very, very strict. It's electronically monitored. So, you know, it is not a simple thing. It is not something that you can just wing it. And because of that, that's why I operate differently than that. And if you ever do become a truck driver and you decide you want to do things that way, that's perfectly fine. There's plenty of people that do that. It's just not the way that I'm doing it. Maybe that'll change. But yeah, I just wanted to respond to that, kind of shed some light on that whole deal. But yeah, if you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you want to see more, subscribe for more.